Welcome, everyone. My name is Bram de Vos, and I will be presenting here my project, Uprooting Agro-systems. You could call me a concept developer. I am focused on the thin line between cities and the urban landscape, mainly to the landscape design architecture. Uprooting Agro-system is a project that I developed last year when I graduated from the Design Academy in Eindhoven. I have been working hard last year to continue the project. Due to COVID, of course, it was a bit of a challenge, but it has been a lot of networking, and luckily the Innovation Café in Kazerne invited me to present my work here. So that's what I will be doing right now. Here's my presentation, and the main question that has been part of this presentation is with the increasing urbanization. Adobe is fixed. Yeah? All right, there we are again. All good. So the project is mainly focused on finding new ways of developing new concepts for cities, how they can provide themselves in a self-sufficient way in agriculture. So how can food be supplied for cities in the future by the city itself? The concept I've developed, I focused it nearby Amsterdam. It's called the Waterland. This is the landscape maquette that I made back then. So on the left, you will see Amsterdam Central in orange. In the light yellow, you'll see Amsterdam North. And to the right is the Waterland. And Waterland, that's the part that I redesigned to a new concept, which you could see as a high efficient landscape that could provide Amsterdam in its food supply. To give a quick explanation right now, the Waterland is for now mainly being used for around 38% for agricultural use. Mainly what has been the main purpose of the agricultural supply there goes to the animal industry for feeding the animals. And it's all export, so nothing is being used right now there for Amsterdam itself. Since this is a relatively unused landscape, I believe that this would be a good future for Amsterdam. So let me walk you through the steps and the projects and the categories that I've been working in and where I am right now. So on the next slide, you will see the legend that I developed with the maquette. In the legend is basically where everything is explained about this project. The first three huge blocks that you see here, that's what I'm going to be talking about right now. Due to the global food chain that we have at the moment, in the early 1950s, a system was developed, which we are still using today. It's called monoculture, and monoculture was seen as a very utopic way of farming, especially after the World War, especially seen in the sense that it's estimated that it has saved 1 billion lives in total. Back then, the combination with pesticides and artificial fertilizers, it created a very efficiency crop production, which we still use nowadays. Unfortunately, due to all these different fertilizers and pesticides, it has also very negative sides, of course, on the world. I think most of you will be familiar with this topic, so I don't need to go too negative about this topic right now. But since this has been so addressed largely here in the world, a lot of people have been thinking differently about new systems of production. Also very old systems that used to be a part of our life in producing food. They have been developed now in kind of like a new jacket, as we say it in the Netherlands. And there are many options of how we could see things differently towards like self-sufficiency, and there are a few options. So for my project, since it is the Netherlands, I was limited in a few amount of options of choosing which system would have been the best for this scenario. So my research has gone deep into all these different agricultural systems, and I came up with 3 of them. The first one is syntropic farming. Syntropic farming has a beautiful system of combining the biodiversity with production. it has a nice development, it has a nice switch between different lines of crops that benefit each other. They minimize also the pesticides that need to be used, because like, for example, a carrot will attract different types of insects that will benefit to another production of plant. But it's also working nicely with like fruit trees or nut trees. It divides the UV light for the plant that's standing next to the higher trees, bushes, I would say. So this is creating kind of like a perfect balance between not using any pesticides, but still production-wise it is very efficient. It's like, you could see it as a good competitor to monoculture. There has been like a main focus on this project is, which I think is a mistake made with monoculture, is that it was focused on like one idea that had to be the solution for everything, like the utopia in that sense. Like right now, I believe we are still kind of making slightly that mistake. Like we are definitely focusing, for example, now a lot on like vertical farming or like permaculture, which in itself is a beautiful system, but it cannot be the only answer towards the issues that we have right now. So that's what I make clear with like the next few slides that will be coming. Like the main purpose of this project is finding a combination of different solutions that benefit each other. So compromising the minimizers that we have. And syntropic farming is the first one in that. So the benefit of the syntropic farming is the biodiversity and the high efficiency that you create. But as I said, not each project has the utopia in itself, because like a syntropic farming, for example, even though you can produce on a large scale, the varieties will be slightly less. So to provide our supermarkets near a city, so near a city with the agriculture that we have, and to produce these supermarkets with the same amount of vegetables through the year through, syntropic farming will not be the answer to that. And of course, we are bounded to the seasonal variations that we have, and syntropic farming cannot produce, of course, through all the seasons. In the next slide, I will show you food forest. Food forest is the second one that I chose. Food forest is basically a forest. If you start from the beginning with designing that forest, in England there's a beautiful example of where they can grow around 500 different species on a square kilometer, which is of course huge. So if you plan that smartly, you can have a huge variety in quantities that you can produce on a square meter. And the beautiful benefit, of course, is the large biodiversity that a forest creates, because it is still just a forest. And over time, as any type of forest, it will sustain itself. It's like a self-sufficient way of still be able to produce vegetables, but with almost zero maintenance. And then, as I said again, food forest also has a few minimizers. One of them is the quantities. Like even though you have a huge variety in amounts, the quantities are a bit less. And the same as syntropic farming, it is seasonal. It's depending on the seasonal variations. So both syntropic farming and food forest, they produce together a huge amount of food. But both of them have in common that they cannot produce in seasonal through all seasons. So in the next slide is vertical farming, which you might have heard of. Vertical farming is in that sense still like a great system. It can produce through all seasons, since like an artificial climate, it's like indoors, controlled nature, basically you could say. And this is a huge benefit of vertical farming. It's also something that you can have in the city, it doesn't only need to be like outside of the city. And it's very consistent, that you can control precisely when you want to have this type of crop at what time of the year. And in the amounts, of course, how far you scale it up. The downside, which the syntropic farming and food forests are kind of like backing up. So the downside is the small variety, like that's a bit like the disbelief with the vertical farming. Like vertical farming is now at the point that it can grow a tomato, which is great, but it cannot produce an onion, a carrot, a garlic, like basically all the types that grow under the soil, in the soil. These are not capable right now of being produced in a vertical farm, and even if it might be possible in the future, it will financially still not be more interesting than if it just would grow in its natural habitat. So yeah, these are my 3 ideal solutions for a scenario next to Amsterdam. I have focused a lot on these three. I've gone deep into the other systems that exist as well, as I said, like permaculture, pixel farming, aquaponics, many exist. But I guess like per city it will change of like what system you need next to the city. So these are the three main topics of the concept of the system that could be next to the city. I will go now a bit into like the subcategories, I would say. A big one of them is water, because I had to find a way, of course, as well, how this landscape next to a city is going to communicate with the inner city. Like how will the transport work, how's logistics, how can people benefit from the area, how is it done with like registrations or like getting orders, like it goes pretty far, of course. The first one I want to share with you is the water. Of course, Amsterdam has a beautiful way in its old culture with the canals that it exists, like how, I don't know how many years ago, but quite a few years ago, how transport was done through the canals. This would be a beautiful option again. That's also how I designed the landscape, like it all exists out of canals. This by by like, for example, electric boats. It could be a beautiful way how we can reintroduce the canals, how we can make the city more car-free, as that's like a big purpose on most agendas of the political parties, but also how the transport can beautifully combine through the landscape to the center. And there are many more, of course. For example, a big one, let me pick one, let's say storage and preserving food. Back in the days, there were beautiful systems in farms where it's super simple, where you just like keep an onion or a potato like dark in the ground, quite cold temperatures, but you could have them for like months and months and months. We are not using that anymore, of course, in cities, but these type of thinking, but also storage could also be, or like preserving could also be like pickling, vacuum sealing, freezing, and you can go pretty far. And as technology has continued, also different types of preservations have continued. For example, there are like very smart freezers that can freeze an apple in a very beautiful way that you can still use it in the winter times as it would have come from the tree directly. So I think that topic is a huge part as well of like how we can provide cities with its food supply through all seasons, not only for the farming, but so also preservation. Wilderness, as I said, with food forest, the benefit that you have is the large variety in biodiversity that you get. It kind of acts as the lungs of a city, the food forest, and that is a huge plus. But I've also included small sites of wilderness, as we apparently can still have in the Netherlands, where nothing is designed by fences around an area, but just like pure free roaming of nature in its own. The variety of biodiversity that's created on these little plots of wilderness land, they will benefit the production of crops as well. It will attract different species, which will benefit in being nature its own pesticide in that sense, and other beautiful ways of how this system can only take more from its natural purposes. There's also a drone tower. I haven't focused too much on the actual technology. Like, I really strongly believe that we can find very, how to say this correctly, I believe we can find very clear, nice concepts that we can develop further. And I think technology is can only be a part to solve some of these problems that we have, which could be, in my scenario, for example, in the food forest. Like a food forest is a forest. It's not like an efficient road where you can drive through or walk through and just pick everything on the left, on the right. Like in the forest, you need to climb almost, and you need to go through bushes and whatever. Like, it's not efficient in harvesting. I think technology could be a beautiful part in that. This is why I call it a drone tower. Like, I believe that we can program drones to understand which fruits we can pick and not, or nuts, in that sense. So I think technology can help us in some problems that we have. So food forest, I think, is a beautiful version of that. So yeah, this is what I created a year ago, and we're kind of in phase 2. I'm working hard with Jonas Gurgen. I think he's part of the Zoom meeting here as well. Jonas and I are working hard now on Continuing further, the subcategories and the visualization, because as you might see in my presentation right now, I have pictures from the outside of the distance, I would say. This is somehow still quite abstract. Like there are many layers in my story that I barely can explain through digital purposes. So that's definitely the next step. And the subcategories are the next one as well. On the left is what I focused on for now. It's still very in the beginning stage. And with Jonas, I'm now really focusing on the food shed, the food waste, local currencies, policies, import, and new industries. I will talk a bit more about that in a second. So that's phase 2. And I'm going to end with this slide, and then we continue to a Myro board that I want to explain to you. So a bit of an abstract question, but why am I presenting here right now in front of you? Because I want to explain why I'm here. This project and the amount of work that's into this project and the years it will take before this is developed is 20-25 years, or maybe even longer. This is not a project that I can do on my own. This is not a project that I also want to do on my own. I definitely think this is a collaboration of more people from different interests, from different varieties of jobs, markets, professors, experts, scientists. So also you shouldn't see me as the scientist. As I call it here, I'm the big thinking concept developer. I've created a huge concept. There has been a lot of attention for this idea. I believe strongly in this idea as well, but with this opportunity, for example, here being at the Innovation Café, I really want to try to get a bigger audience and get more interest of others to help me and to help Jonas and me to bring this to another level. So I really would like you to stay there for in a minute. We're going to change to the Myro presentation. It's going to be a bit more like an unofficial presentation, but it will clearly see where we are in phase 2, and I hope you can find your interest in this next part. All right, here it comes. Kan je hem net inzoomen op die bollen? Okay. Op die linkerkant. Die rechterknop?
Links, ja, is goed. Als je inhoudt, dit. Niet terughouden. Zet de modus maar gewoon uit. Maar doe ik het al.
Ja, zo is goed. Alright. En dan nu met modus, is hij dan? Great. Okay, there we are again, different slide. So this is kind of like the background behind the presentation, and I really want to make this open to you because I really want to invite you all to think along with us how we can see this phase 2 coming along and how we can all think together to like next solutions and next options. So as I said, there are many subcategories. We are only tackling a few, and there are hundreds more. But let's start with the beginning. The big one is the food waste. I believe the food waste is a very interesting topic as well in this scenario. Since food is being produced next to the city, it can also get its own loop in the sense of how the waste has been dealt with the inhabitants of the city, the citizens. I will not go too far in detail, but we are now thinking, Jonas and I, of including the idea how had this been on back in the days, and very straightforward, pigs. Hang on there for a minute. Pigs used to be the most efficient way of feeding animal livestock, but also giving your rest food supplies to the animal. So right now we of course put everything in bins. It goes to a landfill. Some is being composed. Also a lot of stuff isn't. Pigs also right now in this industry are of course not being treated too well. I guess you've seen it in the news quite often. But pigs are now being fed with a lot of products that we eat, like corn, grains, a lot of these products that is almost 30% of our food supply. So that 30% could go to our own supermarkets in that sense, and the leftovers of food that we have could go to the pig development, meaning that pigs could be a beautiful way of they can roam free through the landscape, but still take use of our rest foods, rest supplies, and this could create quite like a beautiful circle in itself of like how we could deal with the organic food waste that we produce. And in this way, meat is included in the proposal, because I haven't talked about meat yet. It's also like quite a ethical thing, of course, to talk about. Like is it okay to kill an animal for our own supplies? But well, let's talk about that topic another time. But in that sense, I think the pig could have like a beautiful life itself. We could give our leftovers to the pigs, and in the end, if the pig is on the right age, it could be like, for example, eco-certified, being slaughtered, and we still have the production in meat in that sense. So that's one topic, and the topic also leads to other ideas. For example, the food shed. The food shed is a term that's being used of understanding where all the steps are with producing food and through which stations it goes through. So when you have, for example, the countryside where it's being farmed, then it goes through a transporter, and then it goes through a distribution center, then it goes again in transport, then it goes again to like another distributor, from there to the supermarket, maybe the customer, maybe a restaurant, then there's waste, and then it goes back, maybe hopefully to like being like organically produced and as used as a compost, for example, again. But we're now getting quite deep into like the food shed, understanding what the circle or the loop could be in this scenario, like which steps will it go through, and what are the things that we haven't thought about, or what are like issues, what are the things that we need to solve in this scenario. Storage and preservation I already talked about. It will be still like a huge topic, but also again. Policies I'm not going to talk about yet, because it's still a bit of a too dangerous topic to talk about right now. And we kind of want to reintroduce a local currency. It will be a beautiful system also to invite citizens to take part in this new supply in this system. To, for example, if you are a participant of, for example, getting weekly your box of food from the farm site, you, for example, can collect points, or you can get discount, or you can get like a tax benefit or something in that way. But also, for example, maybe there could be like a new way of sorting trash in households. So for example, like a part is for the pig, another part is for the compost, and another part is for kombucha. I'm just saying something. If the citizen can go a step further into this way of separating trash, this could also get closer to like another way of giving like a compliment to the citizen, and also giving like a little reward of their work they do into being part of the system. So very quickly explained, this is where we are now. A lot of research has gone in. We're trying to simplify it now. That's also why you see it quite clean, but also you see like still many things are not finished. I guess to end the story, and also later for the Q&A that we have with 30 minutes, this is a very open presentation. It is my explanation of the project that I've done last year. I'm showing you where I'm right now, but I'm really looking for others that can take part in this work, in this huge concept development. So if you feel interested, if you feel like you have feedback, if you have questions, please join us in the Q&A. And always open for having a call or like some emails. Just hit me up, and I will be honestly very happy to get in touch with you and continue this project to another extent. All right, thank you.
Hey, you're still here. So you like the video. If you want, subscribe and click the bell.